Today's Meetup 101 presentation is going to be focused on getting your community to show up. We're going to be talking about engagement, the different tools that are available on Meetup, and the different strategies you can use to get the most out of your membership. As always, we're going to start with a few event guidelines. Now, first of all, this event will be recorded and you do not appear in the video. Similarly, your sound will not be appearing in the video either. Both your video and your audio have been courtesy muted for our event today. If you do have questions, like I said, there's a Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Feel free to submit questions you have about engagement or about using Meetup. We do have support specialists joining us today. They'll be answering questions in real time through that Q&A feature. And some of the questions we'll make time for at the end of our presentation today and do a live Q&A. Closed captioning is also available. If you'd like to turn that on, please click the live transcription icon at the bottom of your screen and just select your preference. And we'll keep moving along. What we can expect today, once I'm done giving us the introduction, we're going to spend the majority of our presentation today talking about how you can boost engagement in your Meetup groups. We'll spend a few minutes afterward just talking about some upcoming features that you can use to leverage on Meetup, both on the website and on the apps, in order to boost your engagement in your groups. Like I said, we'll also make time for Q&A towards the end, and then we'll make sure that you've got the resources and links so that you can contact our community support team. Now, what you'll learn today includes the tools and resources available to attract more attendees for your events, why communication is key to community building, tips and tricks from one of our Meetup organizer mentors. Speaking of which, let's meet today's guest. This is one of our Meetup organizer mentors from our Discord community. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm David Good. I run the International Friend Connection Meetup Pro Network, 36 groups, over 22,000 members in cities all over the world. Started my first group, West Michigan Geeks, 2014. IFC started as a way to kind of help people through lockdown, help people with their mental health and save their lives. You can come every night. Sometimes we do day meetings for Europe, and you meet interesting and beautiful people from all over the world. We also do a lot of events, help people overcome shyness and social anxiety, and give people the tools they need to make rapid progress. If you come, I'm going to help you make more friends than you've ever had your entire life. There we go.
Thanks so much for joining us today, David. We're really excited to hear about your experiences as an organizer and see what we can learn from it. My name's Alex. I'm the content lead on our community support team, and our other host today, Colin. Do you want to say hello to everybody?
Hello, what's up? I'm Colin. I'm a manager of customer support and product ops, and I run a virtual yoga for beginners group.
Terrific. All right. Thanks so much. And without further ado, let's get into the real core of our presentation today, which is boosting engagement. This is a really core issue that we get a lot of questions about. I think one of the most common sort of use cases, one of the most common situations where this becomes necessary is particularly post-pandemic. A lot of groups had to sort of go into stasis and sort of wait until it was clear that events in person or even digitally would be supported through Meetup again. And once those groups were up and running again, organizers were finding it difficult to not only contact members, but get them to turn up to events. So this is going to be a conversation about how we can sort of kickstart both active groups that have hit that sort of stasis mode and also new groups that are hoping to kick it into gear and attract more people than ever. So I'm going to speak first about group expectations. This is something that isn't always a totally obvious first step about setting up a group, but it is definitely something that is in the organizer's toolkit. Now, what I would recommend is for new members joining your group, make sure that your group's description includes these guidelines about attendance, so that you set the expectations that if a member does RSVP to an event, they're expected to turn up or at least to communicate beforehand if they're not going to be able to. And some organizers, in fact, quite a few with very healthy and large groups, are able to set an expectation that a certain number of no-shows is going to be grounds for being removed from the group. A common question that I hear when I'm answering tickets and questions that people submit to our support team is if that's even allowed to remove members from your group. there's some anxiety about whether that creates conflict, whether it seems rude to the members. And the answer around that is that Meetup empowers you, the organizer, to manage the group how you see fit. There doesn't need to specifically be a hardcore reason why you're removing members from groups, but I think event attendance is a really clear-cut expectation that is sensible for members of your group, that if they're going to RSVP for an event, they're expected to turn up and participate. That's the purpose of joining the group in the first place. I think it puts a heavy emphasis on the actual connections in the group, and it encourages people to turn up. Your welcome message also can be a good way to set that expectation, but I think the group description is a really crucial way to start setting that up. Once you've set that expectation, if you have members who have not turned up, they haven't even RSVP'd to events, and you're concerned that you're not reaching them, we did some research before our presentation today because we wanted to make sure that we could speak to this issue. How do you reach out to those inactive members who sometimes it seems like your messages out to those inactive members might not be getting through? So I can confirm we do have messages that go out automatically to members who have not checked your group, who haven't RSVP'd to events, they haven't posted group discussions, they haven't even checked your group homepage. We send reminders and invitations out to those inactive members periodically over a course of 11 months. So repeatedly over the course of those 11 months, trying to lure them back into your group and trying to promote that engagement again. And if they visit your group even one time, they're registered once again as an active member, and those notifications are going to start going through to them more regularly and more as one would expect. However, if after 11 months, they're still not participating, they're still not engaging, they're still not RSVPing, that's when the group expectations that you set in the group description can really come in handy. You can remove a member, and you can sort your member list to see who your inactive members are. By manually removing those members from your group, you allow them the ability to rejoin, so that if they do care about the community and they're like, oh, I haven't seen, events posted for my book club group. If they go searching for events and they see that that group exists, they can rejoin. Rejoining a group will reactivate them as an active member, and again, it boosts the likelihood of them receiving those notifications. So just to reiterate what we've discussed so far, we recommend setting clear group expectations in your group description and perhaps even in your welcome message. Those expectations should include attendance, that if they RSVP to an event, they are expected to turn up, and if not, they may be removed from the group. That's not necessarily a judgment or a boundary being drawn. It's membership hygiene. It's making sure that the people who are part of your member list are engaged members of your group. That is something that a healthy community, I think, really needs and flourishes from. We can share a help center link in our chat for you on how to remove members. There's a help center article on removing and banning members. In this case, since you want them to be able to rejoin the group, you definitely want to remove and not ban those members who have been inactive for a certain amount of time. Okay, so that's the first segment of this. As we were preparing for the event today, one common theme we kept running into is that there isn't like one easy, clear-cut solution to boosting engagement. So setting these group expectations is just one part of the puzzle here. Next, we're going to talk about the next piece of it, which is communications. Colin, do you want to speak a little bit about some of the communication tools that are available?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so like you said, Alex, we kept thinking about what really increases engagement, and we kept coming back to this idea that communication is really the key to community building. And that's why one of the best ways to increase your engagement, membership engagement, and really encourage your members to show up is by contacting them, staying in touch with them. And we have various communication tools to do that. And so the first one I wanted to share with you is, of course, the contact members tool. This tool allows you to send group-wide emails to your members. So you can also send an email to specific subsets of members, whether you create a custom list or You can select to send the message to active members, inactive members, or attendees of specific events. So this is an email-focused communication tool. And another way to utilize this tool is by using your group's announcement email address. You can find this in your group's optional settings. And it functions the same as the contact members tool, but it actually allows you to use your personal email client to send the message. So let's say you have a Gmail account. You can use your Gmail email address to send an email to your group's announcement email address, and that will be blasted to all the members who are subscribed to your messages. On the other hand, we also have, it's very similar to the announcement email address, it's the mailing list. So this functions as more of an email chain that members can reply to, and it can also be found on your group's optional settings page. David, I wanted to pull you in here to see if you had any good tips or best practices specifically around this tool, or anything else you just mentioned.
So what I usually do day before my Friday event here in Grand Rapids, I will use the contact all members tool to send an email out to every single person that's on the email list. That has increased my Friday night attendance. I send an email out with the link to the Friday event. So on Thursday, I send that link out.
Awesome. Oh, good. Okay, good. Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, so, there's a lot of different ways to, contact your members. And this is, a lot of people find email to be really effective. So definitely encourage you to utilize these email tools.
Just to pause where we are for one moment, two ideas that I want to emphasize here are like what I'm taking away from what David has just told us, and based on what we were saying about membership hygiene as well. It's not just expecting one tool to get the job done. Meetup offers a network of resources and tools, both on the website and on the app, that in collaboration, the more that you use them and the more that you use them consistently, it can really see big results in that boost of engagement. The more that your members know what to expect, that there's consistent communication, and that the members who are also part of the group are as invested as they are, it really helps them feel more confident about turning up for your events. The other thing I want to point out is this screenshot on the slide we're looking at here. You can see that some of the subsets, and forgive me, Colin, if I'm repeating something you've said, but some of the subsets that you can target for your messages are members active or inactive within a certain time period. So like I said before, we do send messages to members who have been inactive from 3 months until 11 months, trying to bring them back into your group. The contact members tool here also reaches about the same time frame. I believe it reaches to 1 year. So you want to keep those limits in mind as you're trying to lure those people back onto your group and into your events, trying to encourage them to participate and engage again. Because once you reach that 1 year mark, I think it's worth considering the usefulness of removing some of those inactive members from your group so that you can focus on the people who are really engaged. All right, moving on to the next slide. I'm going to speak a bit now about direct messages. Now, another form of that consistent communication can be personal direct messages that you send to, say, new members who joined your group, members who are attending their first event, adding a little bit more of a personal touch, reaching out directly to them, introducing yourself so that they know who to expect, what kinds of events to expect, and what kind of engagement that they are going to see from the people who are running these events. You can also use direct messages for reminders. And one thing that I think is really key is a follow-up note, just to thank them for attending. Getting that validation that you are part of a community, again, gives like just a really nice framework for continuing to participate and for attending again. Now, David, I believe another one of our mentors in this Discord community has a tactic, like a strategy about using these direct messages. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, now Seal has a good tactic. And if you go on the Discord server, you can speak with Seal directly. Really awesome organizer. Now, what she would do before an event, she will send a person a DM on the Meetup app saying, hey, really looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And then one thing I learned to do too was thank all the new people for coming. And then one tip she gave to me was like, So if someone doesn't show up, just say like, hey, really glad you signed up. I was worried when you didn't show up. You doing okay? And that makes the person think like, oh, hey, that person's really looking out for me. I want to attend their event.
Yeah, and something that I think is particularly lovely about that check-in is I think it speaks to some of the core values of Meetup. Like one of the things I was so excited about when I first started working with Meetup is that emphasis on personal connection. So I think if the leadership team of your group is taking that extra step to reach out to members, see what they're doing, see what they can do to like make events more accommodating for people or more welcoming, it really does pay off. I think one of like maybe the key themes of our presentation today is the more that you're going to put in, the more you're going to see returned back. All right, we're still talking about communications tools here.
Yeah.
Resources available in your group. Let's talk about group discussions. Colin, do you want to?
Yeah. So yeah, group discussions. So this is another feature where you can really kind of get the conversation going. This lives on your group homepage. A lot of organizers use discussions at kind of the group-wide level, and they ask members for event ideas. They can share updates or ask questions in general about to the members. We've also seen organizers utilizing free polling tools. So you can use Google Forms, or I know there's Typeform and Doodle, and they share a link to this poll to kind of ask anything they want. You can get members' schedules, availability. So we thought that was a cool way. It was something cool that we saw. And you can also toggle this feature on or off, meaning that only you can post discussions, or you can allow other members to post discussions. Just a way to, manage, another option to manage your group. So yeah, give this a try. And I think we just have one more communication tool that we want to talk about.
Yeah, and this is a new one. We're excited about rolling this out.
Yes.
I think we've even gotten a question in our Q&A about this feature. So Event Chat is a brand new feature. It will be launching soon, I believe in the next week or two, to the Meetup desktop version, the member app, and the Meetup for Organizers app. The thing that's really exciting about Event Chat is that it allows you to communicate in real time, and that's before, during, and after the event. The concept of this tool is supposed to give your members a sense that the community is still active even when the events aren't happening, that there's ways to engage with each other to communicate. Event Chat supports sharing photos, files, and there's emoji reactions too. We're still accepting feedback as people are using this new feature, and we're building on it and iterating on it, making it more and more useful for people. Something that I've heard directly useful about in-person events in Event Chat is that sometimes for hiking events, it's not always clear where you're supposed to meet your host, where everybody's going to like congregate at first before you set out. And the Event Chat is like a real-time way to say like, oh, we're at this particular sign at this particular marker. It just really helps to facilitate that kind of real-time communication. David, I think you told us as well, like you had some experience using this tool already, right?
Yeah, I kind of actually felt like Event Chat was kind of a mistake at first, but so I'm like, what are they doing? Comments was a lot better, but then once I saw the Event Chat tab get added to the app, then I kind of understood. So one of my organizers in my Ann Arbor group, who does a wonderful job for her shy people and group in Ann Arbor, Mizuho, she organized a Halloween party. And then so people were able to use Event Chat to say, hey, I'm going to bring this, or what would you like me to bring, or I'm going to bring some candy, or I'm going to make Japanese food and bring it, and things like that. So it was a really good way to keep people engaged with the event. That's what sold me on Event Chat.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful that you're sharing that you had an experience where you were skeptical of it at first, and it was proven useful the more that we were developing it. As I said before, receiving feedback about how these features work is how we continue building them and making them more useful for everybody. So glad to hear that it's working for your community. That's really exciting. Okay, so we've talked about setting group expectations in the group description and some of the messaging around the joining of a group. And we've talked about maintaining a consistent communications plan with the different tools available through Meetup to contact and maintain contact with your members. There's one other thing I think we can surface as like a key pillar of maintaining engagement with your group, and that is finance. Colin, do you want to speak about some of the different ways that organizers can use money as a way to continue engaging their groups?
Yeah. A lot of this isn't always thought of as like an obvious way to get your members engaged or to get them to show up, but we have seen that if you set an event fee or if you have member dues enabled, a member who pays just a little bit to participate in your group is much more motivated to actually turn up and continue engaging because they feel like they kind of have a stake in it. So whether you are charging member dues, which requires members to pay in order to stay in the group, or event fees where you can collect payments via PayPal, and members need to RSVP, or they need to pay before they can RSVP. It just kind of gives that extra oomph. We also have fundraising. So now just note that this is currently just a feature for organizers in the United States, but it's something where members can optionally donate towards the cost of your group. They can use any of and you can use any of these funds to offset the cost of your subscription or just general costs of putting on events. So just something to think about. If you're really struggling getting people to show up, it might be worth try charging $1 or a couple dollars just to see if that can help with show ups and engagement. And David, have you ever used any of these tools?
Yeah, so I've never used dues or event fees. That's something I may look at doing in the future. I've used fundraising. I've used the built-in fundraising, and I've gotten some donations via that. But my background's in website development before I became disabled. So I have a website, and then I take donations via PayPal and GoFundMe, and have used those options also. But this year I've raised over $1,000. So
that's using the
asking
fundraising feature.
Well, between the three options that I use, using the fundraising feature hasn't been out that long, but people are donating.
That's great. Okay, cool.
Nice.
The psychological component of it, I think, is really interesting, that like we do have the stats that show that people are more likely to attend an event once they've invested even a small amount of money. The psychological component of being an organizer, I find just really fascinating. So,
Right.
All right, so let's keep in mind the financial aspect, the pillar there for boosting engagement. There's a couple of new tools that we wanted to call attention to as well. And these ones particularly, I think, like I said before, it's not that this is like a silver bullet for engagement, but these next two tools that we're going to point out, they give more context about the state of your community and the specific members in your community. And once you have that information, once you understand a little bit more about who is participating in your events, it allows you to use the other features that we'd already talked about, your expectations, your comms tools, and your financial setups in order to really continue getting the most out of your group. So the first one we'll talk about is the attendee manager, which we recently revamped this year. The attendee manager has different settings so that you can adjust to focus on specific subsets of your attendees. The thing that I find really useful about this is you can see in the screenshot these badges that identify for you who's paid for the event, if it's their first time attending an event, who the hosts are. By breaking down your attendee list into these categories, it gives you more of those pieces of information so that you know who to communicate with, who to thank, who to reach out to, and see if there's more that you can do to welcome them in. David, did you want to speak about the attendee manager?
To be honest, I haven't used it much yet.
Okay.
But I do like the new tags that are on it.
Great, cool.
Yeah, this is this specific screenshot is in the Meetup for Organizers app. And we found that, the organizer app is super useful, especially when you're on the go, just seeing who's coming. And in the following slide, talking about the check-in feature, of course, that we actually launched very recently by popular demand, because we've heard from a lot of organizers that it's so important to be able to see who actually shows up. You can also mark people as no-show. And that kind of ties us back to that group expectation part that we were talking about in the beginning. To be able to like correctly track no-shows is important, because especially if you have that like 3 strikes you're out, rule or whatever, really. So you can keep track of attendance swiping left and right. Now just note that this feature is available 1 hour before your event actually starts. It's meant for like real-time check-in. And then we set it to close 24 hours later, so you can edit who came and whatever, up to 24 hours after you're done with your event. And then when you're done with the check-in, you can see on the event page kind of the stats of like how many no-shows, how many people came, how many people were absent. So we hope that this is helpful in keeping record of that.
Another 2 things I'll point out as well. Those statistics that Colin just pointed out about member attendance, those are only available to members in the leadership team. So those aren't going to be like publicly available to everyone in your group. That's been a concern for some organizers, that it's like, if you do have an issue in your group with no-shows, if new people are joining, you don't have to be concerned about how that's going to look. That's information that's specifically for your leadership team. So it's kept a little bit more secure and private that way. The other point I wanted to make is, while event check-in as a tool is only available in that window of 1 hour before the event starts and up to 24 hours after the event ends, if you want some of those breakdowns about who attended, and the event check-in is no longer available, that's where, just going back to the attendee manager, it becomes, you can still get a lot of the information from event check-in there after the fact and well before the event as well. So in conjunction, those 2 features can give you a lot of statistic information that can feed into your other strategies about boosting engagement. All right, so that is our main presentation on boosting engagement and leveraging the tools in Meetup, leveraging our policies and strategies to get the most out of group engagement. We also want to call attention to really just one product update here. We've spoken earlier today, particularly in regards to the attendee manager and event check-in, the Meetup for Organizers app, which we launched this year. If you scan the QR code that's on the screen now, you'll be taken to a landing page where, if you haven't done so already, you'll be able to download the Meetup for Organizers app for your device, Android or iOS. The thing that we are emphasizing about this app is that it's specific for organizers and leadership team members. The tools there are, they're going to be faster and more efficient than they would be on the pre-existing members app. And you are empowered to create and manage your events on the go, remembering my talking points. We're really excited about how we are continuing to develop the Meetup for Organizers app. We've recently made it available to event hosts as well, who aren't actually members of the leadership team, but have some of those same hosting responsibilities. So they'll be able to access that Meetup for Organizers app. And soon we hope to be launching group ratings, and we'll have more information about that soon. All right, so here we are. It's been, we went through our presentation. We've gotten lots of questions in our Q&A. Thank you so much for sharing those questions. We've pulled some of them aside.
I wanted to share, I can share a couple of tips I wasn't able to earlier.
Of course.
That I wanted to talk about. There's a couple of things that I've found that you can do to get more people to your groups. One thing I found was look for the local large Facebook groups in your areas. You can make a post that talks about your group and your events. Usually if you post a link, it'll get deleted, but sometimes you can post your event link in the comments of your post. If you post a picture, that'll get more engagement. I did that in a local Grand Rapids Inform group, and it led to me getting on Wood TV8 News 3 times, and also a podcast interview locally. And then reach out to local Discord servers if you want to target younger people. And if you can partner with local businesses to advertise your event, if you do an event there or something like that, that can help you get more turnout too.
That's a great point, David. Thank you for sharing your experience with that. I think keeping an eye out for opportunities outside of the Meetup ecosystem and how they can all feed into it and continue boosting engagement is also a really, really crucial strategy as well for some of the really, really, really huge and successful groups, if that's the direction you want to take your community. I think the opportunities of sort of like trying to like bring it full circle here about the tools and how they network together in Meetup, they can also be leveraging opportunities outside of Meetup and those tools as well. So hopefully that sparks some ideas for people who have questions about this. And speaking of questions, we've got some of those questions from our Q&A set aside today. So Colin and I are going to start doing our best to make our way through these. I'll start here, unless you wanted to, Colin.
No, yeah, you can
All
start.
right. Our first question comes from Marion, who asks, can we announce online meetup groups or events nationally, not just to the people in our area? It's a great question, Marion, and it's one that we've gotten before. So we understand that it is a sort of like frequently requested feature. At this time, meetup groups are still based locally. When you create a meetup group, you have to select the local area that in-person events are going to be hosted in. And that's been true since Meetup was conceived. We're a legacy internet company. We've been around since I think 2002. So we're recognizing that the way that community building is shifting and more remote and online events are happening. This
especially
is
post-COVID.
Yeah, exactly. So for now, we are sticking with the principle that your in-person events still need to be local, that we empower the members to decide how far they're going to travel. But if a member has set up a Meetup account and they're searching for events in their area, we still want to sort of facilitate them finding local and in-person events within a certain radius of where they are located.
Yeah, so although
oh, go ahead, Colin.
Sorry, so although your group announcement isn't cast nationally or, in a huge net, members and other people can still find your group through search, of course. It's just that initial group announcement is a bit more localized.
If you're interested, we can post some resources about Meetup Pro in the chat. Some Meetup Pro networks have branches worldwide, and they're able to post a network event, which is the same event posted across multiple groups, and that can sort of increase the geographic reach of an event, especially if it's remote. Meetup Pro has a different set of tools and a different set of analytics with a dashboard for managing your groups. We'll try to post some information into the chat there. But I would also say too, since it is a question that we know some organizers have about being able to announce online groups or national events, later towards the end of our presentation, we are going to have links up for our feature requests. Really crucial part of our process about updating Meetup. If it's a really important part of your community building to you to be able to have that announcement, submit it to our product team. We review all feedback and it does inform our policy decisions going forward.
I see a message or a question from Anne-Marie. They said, when will the chat feature be enabled for all Meetup events? Great question. So event chat has been kind of in a beta test phase for a long time, but we are planning to launch it to all groups within the next week or so. And so once that is launched, again, we want to hear your feedback about how it works for you. We've gotten so much awesome feedback from organizers just explaining how it's useful and how it can be improved. So thank you so much for everyone who's already shared. And we have made a lot of adjustments in this beta phase since. So once it's launched, you definitely let us know what you think. We hope that it increases your member engagement, kind of gets the event conversation going.
Great, thanks, Colin. Next question is kind of tricky. Christina asks, how do we get people to say whether they will attend online or in person? We put the questions, but they don't respond, and I ask again in chat too. So relevant to what we're discussing about engagement, I get that that's the surface level of the question, but I think there's actually another level here, which is we're talking about hybrid events, events that are being hosted both remotely over Zoom or another video conferencing service and in person at the same time. This is another one of those features that we are aware organizers are asking for, And we are actively investigating ways about making that happen. At this time, Meetup does not support hybrid events, which does create this issue that if you are hosting one, it's not always going to be clear who's attending in what forum. Knowing that this isn't something we actively support at this time, this is another situation in which I would strongly recommend submitting that feature request. The more requests we get about supporting hybrid events, the more urgent it becomes that we'll need to roll something out to address that concern for our organizers and for our community. In the meantime, what I would recommend is to lean on the first suggestion we had today, which is setting group expectations, which is that if your members are not engaging with the conditions of participating in your community, you are empowered as an organizer to remove them from the event, remove them from the group. Like, you need to be able to plan, you need this information. And I think making the determination for your community about being inclusive and being welcoming versus like not having the information you need in order to run the events the way you need to run them. These are decisions that we're empowering you to make and that Meetup supports you in making. But I think the deeper issue here is hybrid events, which we're aware are a frequent request. So please be sure to submit that feature request when we post the links for it. So thanks so much for submitting that question, Christine. I think it speaks to a pretty core issue.
I see a question from Peter. What is the difference between announcements and email chain conversations for group mailing lists? Yeah, so this is probably going back to that slide about the contact members tool and mailing list and announcement address. So I just wanted to take over screen sharing really quick, and I wanted to show you in my group, I have, my group settings, and I wanted to point out this part here, the optional features setting. And so right here, you can see that your group has a mailing list, but it also, and the mailing list is specifically for, kind of communication between members. It works as a traditional email kind of chain list where, people can respond to other people's messages, kind of like the old school way of communicating via email. We understand that organizers still utilize this, so but we also have this announcement address. Now, I think this is where the confusion comes in. When you send an email to this announcement email address, it's basically an announcement from you to your members saying whatever you need to share about the group. And so it's kind of, it's basically the same idea as the contact members tool. So you're just using this email address instead of the contact members tool. So when you send a message, everyone will get that message. And if they reply, though, it will go back to this mailing list for everyone to kind of see. So announcement is just for organizers. Mailing list is for members. I hope that makes sense.
All right. Thanks, Colin. And go back to sharing my screen. I've got a question that I think David's going to be able to help us with. This question came in from Tiffany. And Tiffany asked, any guidance or advice you can offer for someone who took over as the organizer of an existing but inactive group? We have scheduled 4 events so far with very low attendance and a number of no-shows. We've tried to present a variety of event types to be sure and consider all tastes, but it doesn't seem to matter. It's extremely frustrating, and we're considering removing almost everyone and starting from scratch. David, do you want to speak to what happens if you're experiencing that sort of low attendance and those no-shows?
Yeah, now when you first start a group and start out, you got to realize that that running a meetup group's a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take a while to build momentum. Same with kind of reactivating an old group. Now, from the new information that I have today, I'm actually consider removing people that like haven't visited the group in like 6 months, and then that may give the opportunity to rejoin again once they see that message like, oh, you've been removed for the group because you haven't visited for a long time, or something like that. So that's a new tactic I'm considering. But from my experience, so I've had to overcome major social anxiety. 10 years ago, I did not have the ability to have a conversation with someone. Like even sending someone a thank you DM in Meetup like gave me super anxiety to do that. So I've had to use Meetup to change myself a lot and force myself to grow. But if you do your events consistently, if you show up, whether like 2 people show up or 20 people show up, the group's going to grow over time. Meetup's doing that work behind the scenes to get people to your events. That's the reason why I use Meetup rather than any other platform. Or Meetup does that behind the scenes work to get people to come to your events. There's no other company that's doing that right now.
Thanks, David. And I think the situation of getting that low attendance, hearing that it's a marathon, not a sprint, is hugely helpful to hear, because I think the situation of both starting a group and taking over an existing group, if you're not immediately seeing the response you want to see, it can be very disheartening. This is another, I think, situation where highlighting the Meetup organizer community on Discord is really helpful. We'll post another QR code on a future slide so that you can join that Discord community if you haven't already.
Yeah, come on the Discord server. We'll help you out. We'll take care of you.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really magical about it is that you are hearing from other organizers who are encountering the same issues, and you're hearing their experiences and hearing what their solutions have been. I think it's just a really nice support network. Okay, another question. This one comes from Mandy. Do member dues deter people from potentially joining a Meetup group? Great question, because we're talking about the psychological component about like having people invest more, that they'll be more likely to attend an event if they've paid for an event fee, say. The nice thing about member dues, even though they are required, there is a test period that organizers can set. There's a range of days or weeks, I think sometimes maybe.
Yeah, it's a trial period. You can choose 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, like however long you want your members to participate in the group, and then kind of feel and see if this is the right group for them, and then eventually decide to pay.
Yeah, and Meetup will send them reminders as their trial period is running out that they will need to pay. If they don't pay by the end of the trial period, they are removed from the group. They would have to pay then to rejoin the group. But again, like, we provide support through those processes, both for organizers and members who are trying to navigate member dues. I think the important thing to highlight, though, is in my experience, it has not deterred anyone from joining a group because they can test it out for themselves. There's another question I think is related to this, which is there a way to communicate with members who are in the awaiting dues list? And this is like, if their trial period has run out and they need to pay, they haven't quite been removed from the group yet. Is there a way to communicate with those members to encourage them to become active? Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's actually a subset in the contact members tool that you can contact them, members who are awaiting dues. Isn't that correct?
To be honest, I don't recall off the top of my head. If it's not possible, that sounds like a very reasonable feature.
And if it's not available, then direct messaging is definitely a possibility too.
Yeah, but I can see how it could be really useful to just have like a preset list of people who are awaiting dues. Just send them an email, be like, hey, like, reminder. So I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head if it's in the contact members tool, but if it isn't, we want to hear that feature request for sure.
Great. Okay. I've got another question here. Sorry, I'm like prepping a Help Center article that we'll be able to share. This is going to be our last question because we are at time, but I think it's an important thing to highlight. So the question here is, how do people manage spam in discussions, and can hosts delete spam? The answer is yes. We want to make sure that with the communication tools that we have available, that you and your members feel safe and comfortable communicating with each other. And we have ways of reporting spam, inappropriate content, harassment. If your community is experiencing any of these things, we have a trust and safety team whose job it is to investigate these things and take action to protect your community. So I want to make sure that those resources have been highlighted for you. Like I said, we are at time, so I'm going to quickly run through the resources that are going to be available to you in case we were not able to get to your questions today. First of all, top left corner of this QR code here, I've mentioned numerous times today that we have a feature request form. This is a crucial tool. If there is something that we can improve, if there is a tool that is missing that would be really useful for your group, use this feature request form. It's broken down into different parts of Meetup, groups, events, communications tools, whatever is relevant for your group. You can submit that request. Our product team reviews it. They make decisions about future updates based on your feedback. If you don't have specific requests, but you just want to stay up to date on what we're launching and what's rolling out when, the bottom left-hand corner, that QR code will bring you to the product updates page in our Community Matters blog. We'll update that every time we've got a new launch coming. If you have questions about navigating or using the tools of Meetup on the website or the apps, the top right-hand corner is our Help Center. At the bottom of every Help Center article is a link that says get help. It'll create an email ticket that'll go to our community support team, and our support specialists will be standing by to support you on an account-based level. And then last but not least, in the bottom right-hand corner, if you have encountered an error message, something isn't working on the website or the app, please submit a bug report, a direct request to our team to investigate things that are going wrong on the platform so that we can take action on it even swifter. Making sure we get those reports to the right team faster is how that helps. As I said, the organizer community on Discord is a hugely helpful resource. We launched it this year, maybe last year. It's still in the process of building, but we've got lots and lots of people already discussing and sharing their experiences, including David. And thank you once again, David, for joining us today. Feel free to scan this QR code if you'd like to join the Discord community. It is a real-time instant messaging platform, and there's lots of discussions and polls and prompts and stuff to engage with. There are pictures being shared from events. It's a really, really great community, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. Last but not least, you can subscribe to the Meetup podcast. Our CEO, David Siegel, hosts conversations, and he makes announcements about things that are coming up soon about Meetup. Scan this QR code if you'd like to know more about our podcast. I want to thank everyone who joined us today remotely for this event. Hugely important core experience about being an organizer. Lots of really great questions. We really appreciate your participation. Thank you so much, and we will see you at the next event.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you again, David.